Welcome to another episode of Distory with Kate and Kirk. My name is Kirk from walruscarp.com, your spot for the latest hacks, snacks, and fun facts. And with me, as always, is Skipper Kate. Kate, the Disney Cicerone, how are we doing this evening?
I am doing wonderful. I've enjoyed a full day at Epcot, and we had Star Wars Day yesterday, and it's been a wonderful time here at Disney World. Just really enjoying it.
Yeah, May the 4th was incredible. So much fun. It was a little bit different than last year, just a little bit. And the merch was a little underwhelming. But other than that, it was overall really fun. Lots of great costuming, lots of great friends. And the lightsaber meetup at the end is a thing. It's a thing.
It's wild.
I think my favorite part is basically the giant mosh pit in front of the Millennium Falcon, that whatever object that you have that is Star Wars related and you decide to lift it and bestow it over your head like Rafiki showing the new king at Pride Rock, you will get a chant. Everyone got a chant. If you had anything, Grogu, droid. It wasn't even like specific.
Party droid. I like
there
the
was,
party
there
droid.
was party droid who had all these lights on it. Yeah, it was wild.
Yeah. And then I had that Grogu balloon that went away, and everybody was like screaming and like, because it was so upsetting that someone let go of a Grogu balloon. So
it was funny because like people were cheering for Grogu, and then when it went away, it was like this infinite sadness over the crowd. It was very funny.
Very sad. I know it was an experience, and it was a very people-y, but it was really fun. So I'm glad
it was, and we got some really good videos that are cinematic and very, very different than I think how most people will cover May the 4th. So I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, that's going to be really fun to see those.
Tonight, let's go to the Jungle Cruise.
Yeah,
we are cruising. We are still cruising, but this time we are not cruising for a bruising. We're cruising for Casablanca planes and African Velts.
And you were so upset at me that I wanted to do this plane again. You're like, how do we cover the plane? Haven't we done it? I'm like, no, because we haven't. Because this plane is so controversial in Disney history land. It is controversial. So we're going to talk about the controversial plane.
Let's get wild about planes.
Let's get wild about planes. Let's get down.
Yeah. You okay? Are you okay? Did you get enough rest? My goodness.
No, get down to plane. I was trying to make it didn't. I was trying to make a joke, but it didn't land.
Yeah, it's plain to see that you've crash landed. All right, Kate, talk about planes.
Okay. So the plane that is in the Jungle Cruise, we've already touched on this a little bit, so I won't go over everything that we've covered, but I will just touch on it. I know. I know. I will mention that is a Lockheed Model Electra 12A Junior. That is the model of the plane. And it has a connection back to Casablanca, which we've talked about because Harper Goff was the original set designer for Casablanca, the movie. And this plane was used in the Great Movie Ride. It was cut in half, and the front half went in the Great Movie Ride at Hollywood Studios, and the back half ended up in the Jungle Cruise. Now, gets controversial for. It's really kind of a complex story about how this got controversial, but I will just say a little bit about the actual airplane. It is a small 6-passenger 2-engine plane that was used in the late 30s by small companies or private individuals. It just had a really long and colorful career in Hollywood. It was used in some of the movies. So where the controversy comes in is there's people that say it could not possibly have been used for Casablanca because the famous scene in Casablanca had a fake airplane in that famous scene in the end. Because of wartime restrictions, it was on a soundstage that they recorded that scene, which is why they have all that fog that's kind of obscuring things so that it doesn't look as fake. So Lee Katz was the assistant director of Casablanca, and he said, we were not allowed to leave the lot So this airport was built on a stage with a cutout airplane, and obviously we fogged the set, not so much to give it atmosphere, but because we had to conceal the fact that everything was so phony. We finally positioned the plane, which was, I thought, a pretty bad cutout, as far away as we dared. And we had no way to give it any perspective. And it occurred to me to hire a bunch of little people to portray the mechanics to give it forced perspective, and it worked. When Katz says it's a cutout airplane, what he's referring to is not that it's like a two-dimensional plywood facade, but the Warner Brothers studio, the prop department actually created two models, one that was half size and one that was 1/4 size out of balsa and plywood to use on the limited space at the soundstage. So they're really kind of, complex models, but they're just models because of the wartime restrictions at the airport. So this is why everybody says that plane can't possibly be the one that is in Casablanca. However, there's 1 minute before the movie ends, there is a plane that takes off in the movie, which I have a picture of here. And this is an actual airplane taking off. This is not a fake airplane that they made fly through some space. It actually is an airplane. It's a video of an airplane taking off at an airport. And so this is another layer of this controversy, is because some people say, well, that's not the right model of airplane. So what's the truth here? How do we untangle this? Well, we have a couple of things. First of all, the Imagineer, who was part of the team that located the plane, and he investigated the serial number and did show it was at Warner Brothers at the same time as Casablanca. Well, so that puts it in the right time period. Was it used on this? But a lot of people will say the plane that's in the movie is not the same one that is in the, is not a Lockheed Model Electra 12A. That's like one of the biggest arguments. They say there was a plane in the movie, but it wasn't the same model as the one that's in the Jungle Cruise. So here's where we get our proof of this. This actually came, I want to credit Werner Weiss, who's from Yesterland, because this is another Disney historian. I don't want to take credit for discovering this. In Behind the Scenes from 1992, the author Harlan Lebo describes how the nighttime shots of the Electra 12A became part of the movie. So the production manager, Al Alborn, successfully obtained permission from the 4th Interceptor Command, which governed the airspace in the Los Angeles area. This was a really remarkable achievement, considering that there was nearly nightly blackouts during this period because of the war for safety, because of the possibility of Japanese attacks. Then Michael Curtiz, the director of Casablanca, was able to send a second unit to what is now Van Nuys Airport, just as filming of the studio airport sequences were wrapping up. And this is how he described it. So it says, the filming of the airport scenes on stage 1, this is the staging of Casablanca, with on-set arguments, 11th hour arrivals of dialogue and directorial script manipulations marked a turning point in the production. The shooting had passed its toughest obstacles as the most difficult filming was completed, and the production rolled towards its conclusion. With sighs of relief all around, Curtiz wrapped up the last of the airport sequences on July 22nd, the most arduous 5 shooting days of the picture. The day before, the Curtiz show passed its planned completion date, and the production by this time was officially over schedule. The next day, Warner's second unit, directed by Ross Lederman, filmed the on-location night shots of the Lisbon plane, which is this plane, a 2-engine Lockheed Electra at the Los Angeles Metropolitan Airport. The night shooting had indeed been arranged. In the midst of World War, Alborn's influence in the 4th Interceptor Command had prevailed. So, this is what we know, is this plane was indeed a Lockheed Electra. Warner Brothers had a Lockheed Electra plane, the same model, the serial number. They owned this at the exact same time Casablanca was shot. Did they own more than one of these planes? That is possible. Is it likely? Probably not. So can we say definitively that this is the exact plane that was in Casablanca? We're not sure. But can we say that it's very, very likely? Indeed. So that's a little bit of my backstory.
I like that. That's awesome. Like
Yeah.
it takes some time to get there, but the truth is everyone has been curious as to whether or not there is legitimate proof that this is potentially that plane. So I feel like that is, where else is it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What else would it be?
Well, it's really interesting that people would say that it's not it, because it does, like the model of it, even looking at these like crummy pictures that are stills from the movie, the model is the correct model from what I just showed you. And it's really interesting to me that people are just like, no, it couldn't possibly be. And I was like, well, it could though. It could because of this. You do see in the Disney, this is the Disney version from the scene that is in the Great Movie Ride. This is the front of the plane that they slice the plane in half to put in the Jungle Cruise. So there's more to this plane, because there's a little backstory of why. Now it's transitioning away from like the actual plane, transitioning to the backstory of this plane for the Jungle Cruise. Why is this plane in the Jungle Cruise? What story are we telling here? So this airplane was used during the 1930s and crashed along the Nile of North Africa around 1938. This is the backstory they've written for it. The plane utilized by the company Aero Casablanca was utilized by the company Aero Casablanca as a part of Aero Casablanca's Belgian Congo River tour. This is something we also remember. We talked about this for Albert Awol makes announcements about this, and it's also on that. In the Disney World queue, there's a rock that has Aero Casablanca written on it. These tours to the Congo transported passengers to the region for a minimum of 25 years. A survivor of the wreckage might have become a skipper for the Jungle Navigation Company following the stranding in the Congo. So, but they did kind of adjust this story, and they enhanced it as they've been adding a lot of the sea references. So in 2021, when they made all these kind of additions to the Jungle Cruise, they added the words, "The Amazing Hathaway Brown," to the plane. So Kirk's showing you an older photo. This is what it looks like now with the Amazing Hathaway Brown. So Kirk, do you know about Hathaway Brown? Do you want to talk about him, or do you want me to keep going?
I don't. I would like you to keep going, because I have my own Casablanca, Indiana Jones, and Albert Awol to talk about. So have at it.
Okay, let me talk about Amazing Hathaway Brown, and I'll let you get yours. So Amazing, it's a reference to the Adventurers Club character Hathaway Brown. That's who that is. He was an aviator during the 20th century and a member of the Adventurers Club on Pleasure Island. Let me show you a picture of him real quick. This is a good old Hathaway Brown.
It's the iconoclastic aviator of the day.
Yes.
And
indeed.
business mogul.
He's very dapper with his little vest and tie. So Hathaway Brown was a handsome and charismatic individual who prided himself on his looks and was considerably narcissistic. No surprise there. He was also a model for the cereal brand Jinkies. That's part of his backstory. From 1931 to 1936, Hathaway was the winner of the Balderdash Cup, which was a competition the Adventurers Club to determine the most intrepid adventurer of each year based off of their stories. But in 1937, Hathaway lost his winning streak of the Balderdash Cup to the underdog newcoming club member Emily Bleehall. By the 1940s, Hathaway had become considerably familiar with Trader Sam and frequently sent Sam letters and photos of himself and Jinky cereal boxes. Sam would often provide Hathaway with enchanted alcoholic brews, both to drink and to use as fuel for his airplane. The Gypsy Moth was the name of his airplane, the Gypsy Moth, and that furthered their friendship. So the crashed plane was then given the lettering, "The Amazing Hathaway Brown," to presumably be the remains of at least one of the various Gypsy Moths. So one of his airplanes, essentially. Brown also befriended a fellow aviator by the name of Jock Lindsay, which might sound familiar to some of you who know Disney, a member of the Society of Explorers and Adventurers. In 1955, Brown participated in the opening of Jock's Bar in the town of Disney Springs, Florida. And there's also a letter from Trader Sam. It says, Sam, thanks for keeping the tiki torches lit. Would have made for a rough landing that night without them. Until we meet again, high and faster, Hathaway Brown. So he always signs it higher and faster. And he also says, Sam, thanks for the high octane fuel. You put me on the map. Or is it the other way around? Higher and faster, H. So I do have a picture of the one that's in Trader Sam's.
I like that. That's fun.
This is the high octane picture.
It reminds me of like, do you remember in Back to the Future, the third one, when they go back to the West and they're trying to figure out how to power the DeLorean, but they obviously don't have fuel. So they attempt to throw like this like ethanol alcohol, basically distilled spirit from the bar into it. And it like blows out some part of the exhaust or something.
Yeah. And Higher and Faster, is from Captain Marvel too, but I don't think there's any ties to it that I know of. But I'll do a little digging to see, because it could be, but I don't think so. I don't think the Society of Inexplorers Adventures and the Marvel
universe,
cinematic universe overlap. I don't think there is that, but I'll do some research just in case. So
I love that. You know, honestly, I need to delve. It's not exactly easy to find it. So that's number one. I guess it shouldn't be easy to find because they're a secret society of explorers and adventurers. But I wish there was just a way to hear all of their stories, because they all have such unique backstories, but there's no like one wrapped up, you know?
There's at least one website that talks all about Society of Explorers and Adventures. So I'll send it to you and also link it in our Discord and stuff.
Oh, awesome.
You. That explains all their backstories with all the characters.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Yeah. Fantastic.
Yeah. It's not like in a book or anything, but there's
no. But I would love like a book, especially if somebody expanded upon like what was the stories that was told by Emily and by Hawthorne to win the Boulder Dash Cup. Do you know what I mean?
It's
like,
terribly complicated. Like, it's keeping track of it is it's crazy.
I know, but that's what I think would be such a cool thing to all put together that, you know, very few people would ever read.
Mm-hmm. Very few people like us would read it.
I know, there'd be like divers. 8 of us. There'd be 8 of us who would be like, this is amazing. Meanwhile, the swimmers and the waiters would be, this is awfully boring. Like, but I also feel like Distory is awfully boring if you are not a diver. If you are a waiter, this is not it.
No, if you're a diver, this is fascinating.
Yeah, if you don't know what we're talking about a metaphor that was told to us by our Imagineering friend, Kevin Lively, who told it to Kate, that basically there are 3 different types of people when they're going on attractions. So when you're an Imagineer, you need to think about that while you're developing a queue, a storyline, all the props, both visual, sound, audio, all these things kind of intertwine together. So the waiters are the ones that are they just want the surface area stuff. Then the swimmers,
they're like looking forward to get on the ride. They're probably on their phones.
Yeah, they're really just they'll look at something and go like, oh, there's a hammock, okay, whatever, you know, like there's nothing to it. It's just they noticed it existed and it moved on, right? Then a swimmer might be like, oh, that's interesting. Oh, did you see this? Like that's like a man-eating plant. That's pretty crazy. You know, like they might actually get a little bit more. They might actually read what something is because there's a plaque or a letter. And then there's the divers like us who we'll talk about the Casablanca plane for 10 minutes.
And who like obsessively research over it to try to prove those people wrong that say it's not. Because
oh God, you make this a TikTok, you know you're getting destroyed, but in a good way. Well,
there's so many people that because there's been a ton of things that are saying, you know, this is debunked, and then it's like and that was like 10 years ago, before more of this actual firsthand accounts came out from the Casablanca crew, you know. So like it's old information. So it's controversial in the Disney history world.
It certainly is. It certainly is. But there's enough meat on the bone to make some inferences and some educated guesses.
Yeah. So, at the very least, we know that plane was used in the movie, that exact model was used in the movie and was owned by Warner Brothers at the same time. And the one Disney owns, the serial number matches that. So we know that much.
If it walks like a duck, All right, I have the little clip from, of course, our friends at the DBC, Disney Broadcasting Company, Albert Awol's script that mentions Aero Casablanca. The DBC is proud and financially pleased to welcome. I can't even get through.
You got this.
It's so funny, though. The DBC is proud and financially pleased to welcome a new sponsor to AWOL Airwaves. It's Aero Casablanca. As an introductory offer, all Jungle Cruise personnel will receive discounted fares on Aero Casablanca's Belgian Congo River tour. All flights must be booked at least 2 minutes in advance of takeoff, and stays in the Congo region must be for a minimum of 25 years. Fly the skies of Aero Casablanca, the airline no one comes back on. Minimum stay of 25 years, and you have to give 2 minutes advance.
I love that.
Yeah, it's great. It's a good one. All right, now for me to geek out a little bit on some things. So, this is going to be wildly coming out of left field where nobody's talking about it, but I'm going to make some inferences too. But it's not anything. It's literally nothing. It's just me having fun. So let's have some fun together and ignore it.
I love how you preface that with like, it's like nothing.
It's literally means nothing to anyone but me. So Casablanca, over in the Magic Kingdom's queue of the Jungle Cruise, it shows Aero Casablanca. So Aero is just like barely written at the top. You can see it's kind of like faded where Casablanca is really, really loud and proud. But the one thing that I noticed is that this is not the same style plane that we've been talking about the entire time. No, this is a seaplane. So I just like, because it's really fun. What did you do?
I'd hit the wrong button.
Oh, you're good. You're good. So we had mentioned Jock Lindsay, and here's Jock Lindsay on his seaplane. Now, this seaplane is a single wing. It is not a bi-wing. So there's a continuity error here, but it is a single prop, where the other plane that Kate has up right now is a dual prop plane. But this one, which was a seaplane, this was a UBF2 seaplane. And I just think it's fun because it certainly does look a lot like that one, minus the additional wing. And then I also like, if you're a geek for Disney and Star Wars, because George Lucas had also made Indiana Jones.
Oh my gosh.
OBCPO, Obi-Wan, or Old Ben, and then C3PO. Is the call signs on that. So I just thought that was fun. And it certainly
where did you
does.
Get that picture?
Where did I get this picture? This one?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I found it on the internet.
No, but I'm like, whose picture is that? I must have missed it. Does it belong to somebody? Or like, who's this plane belong to?
Oh, it belongs to Jock Lindsay, who's right there, who's fishing.
Oh, Jock Lindsay. Okay. I missed that part.
So yeah, no. This isn't like a random one. This is Jock Lindsay. So like Jock Lindsay's
I was like, is this a coincidence that you found a photo that has these?
No. Down here. And then also, because it's also fun, you can actually see this is what a UB-F2 seaplane would also look like, but in Tokyo's Disney Sea, they also have a Jock Lindsay look-alike plane. So there you go.
That's really cool.
So that's my little contribution to plain nothingness. That was just for fun again.
I really want to go to Jock Lindsay's hangar bar now and like.
Oh, dude, yeah, it's
geek out.
It's what would be cool. You would like Jock Lindsay's hangar bar. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick. Jock Lindsay's. It's a fun bar with lots of hidden details. Like that's the best part of the bar is walking around. And I'm like such a nerd. Like I'd sit at the bar and just the bartenders will tell you everything. But they have a boat and you can sip on the boat. Did you know this?
No.
Did you know?
I've never been there. No. I know. I need to go. I don't go to Disney Springs because the Disney buses are terrible to Disney Springs.
Look at the steamer. You sit on a steamer that's dry docked.
Gosh. It's Isn't like a Jungle Cruise boat.
It is a Jungle Cruise boat. Queen. It is an African queen. And it literally, you can sit and dine and enjoy cocktails on this African queen style boat.
Do you have to have like a big party to do that? Or is it just
No, I was there alone and I sat on the Reggie is what they call it.
I was alone on this boat.
I was completely alone and I got that.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
And their pretzels come on a little plane as well. Look at this. That's all plain to see in front of us. Yeah, we do need to go. I honestly, there's not many themed places anymore when it comes to Disney Springs, right? Like or hang on, let me reframe that. There's not a lot of places that are so Disney IP themed. This is the concept art of it, which I think they really match the concept art. Here's the actual interior. Yeah, so it does really still have like the props. It's really good. And they do in the Christmas time, they do Jock Lindsay's Christmas bar, and they get a whole new menu, and it's all Christmas lights all inside. It's really fun. If there is one place that you could probably convince me to go, it would be Jock Lindsay's on a Monday in the daytime.
In the daytime.
There's all these like little like yeah, I won't go there at night. It's too scary. It's like it's too many people about. The other thing that's unique about Jock Lindsay's is there's no reservations. There's no ADRs, so you can't get an advanced dining reservation. It is all just walk up and wait list. If you're solo dolo, you can usually get a bar spot pretty easily. It's not that bad because most people are like waiting for tables. They also have now you're just having me on this whole Jock Lindsay thing, but I think there's a diving bell. This one you actually have to have like a group. Oh, these are terrible pictures. Oh, that's a much better picture. This is during Christmas time, but you can actually eat inside of a diving bell.
Oh my gosh. I need to go to this place.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew about it, but I've never I just haven't been there. Mm-hmm. I just don't spend a lot of time in Disney Springs.
Yeah. Yeah. They've got a cocktail for the monkey brains and, and there's a trunk where I forget what Jock Lindsay's snake's name is. Also the Ark of the Covenant's here. It's up in the rafters.
Yeah. We found it.
It's
in a bar in Disney Springs.
Dude, maybe we go soon. Maybe we go soon.
I know we gotta figure that out.
Plain stuff. Yeah. Anyway. All right, so let me get rid of this section. I don't need anything from this.
The only other thing I have for this this area with the plane is there was new cricket sound effects and other kind of general animal sounds added to this area around the plane in 2022. So I have it is very buggy. It is. You can hear that for sure. Yeah. Well, it is now, but it didn't used to be. So
yeah,
it's more buggy than it used to be.
More buggy. I'm bugging out. It's like too many insects, which I don't know if you noticed last couple times. It's been like a little buggy in Disney. Like they're not.
Isn't the love bugs are out.
Love bugs are out, but there's been some bitey bugs lately. Ooh. And I'm like, this is
I didn't get any bitey bugs.
Yeah, they're not spraying as well as what they used to. Mm-hmm. Anyway. All right. What else do you got on the planes? Do we want to, have we landed?
The only other thing I have for it is, I have a little article that was released by the Chicago Tribune that I didn't want to read first because they don't have much accuracy in their reporting. They didn't get everything correct, but it is from 1988. So there's an article that was run that says Casablanca plane lands at Disney. And this is from June 30th, 1988. So it says, possibly the most famous farewell scene in all of movies separated Humphrey Bogart and Ingrid Bergman in Casablanca, a moment that meant a great deal to lovers and families parted in World War II. The plane in the scene is a Lockheed Electra 12A, and as time went by, nobody had any idea what happened to it. It has been found and restored to its rightful place in the collective movie-going memory. Walt Disney Studios was putting together props from significant movies for an attraction called the Great Movie Ride and it should be Disney MGM Studios. I think they'd say Magic Kingdom or something. Studio researchers began looking for a plane that looked like the original Lockheed, and they found the actual plane in Hondo, Texas. They could tell from the serial number 1204. There's only so many of these planes made. It says, besides its starring role in Casablanca, the plane was featured in 2 Tarzan movies in the 1940s. So the Tarzan movies is true. They got the name of the park wrong because it wasn't Disney MGM Studios like it should have been. But this is what was reported. This is what Disney told them was this plane was the actual one from Casablanca. So, take that evidence for what it is.
I'm gonna hang on. Let me. I'm gonna take that evidence with just one of these, just one little tiny grain of salt.
Yeah, that's why I didn't present it as like my main case for this.
Yeah, no, that is like.
It's just
like, hey,
newspaper.
I went on Jerry's Twitter account, and Jerry was like, "It's definitely the plane." Signed Jerry. And you're like, well, Jerry wouldn't do us wrong. I know how he does. I know what he's talking about.
So, yeah. So that's all I have on the plane. Just really interesting kind of controversy that has been going back and forth for quite some time. And if you look at like Snopes.com and things like that, it'll tell you like it is not the plane because they'll say because it's not the right model, and that's old information. So Snopes.com is not correct on this one.
You can't even Snope anymore. I mean, what is this world coming to? You can't even use Snopes.
Remember when Snopes was like the thing?
It was. It was like because like the internet back then was so untruthful, like so horribly untruthful, and there wasn't that many resources. Like if you looked up, you wouldn't find controversy, but if you looked up any other controversy, like major ones, like Bigfoot, there'd be like 2 websites,
Yeah.
So you're like, I have to trust Snopes. Snopes knows what they're talking about.
Snopes is the most, and then it came out that like they actually are very biased, so they're not necessarily accurate. Anyway, that's a whole nother thing. But so that's what I've got on the plane. Should we truck down the river towards the African Veldt?
I would love nothing more than to leave this plane behind.
But okay, don't you admit though that information is really interesting and different than what I've said previously? Yes?
Yes.
You really didn't want to say yes there.
No, listen, I think you make a very compelling argument. It's just not of my interest, but it's a compelling argument, and I think the way that you presented it is probably the most contextually accurate with a ruling line that guides us to potentially some truth. But I just don't really care about the plane. I'm just gonna be honest with you. I don't really care.
Okay, fair enough.
That's just plain rude.
How can you not like that? I mean, it's like a weird.
You don't have to like everything, Kate. That's why there's chocolate and vanilla and strawberry even.
No, it's like there's. Okay, it's fine. I'm gonna let it go. It's fine.
Listen,
it's like a significant movie moment in history that is like sitting in the Jungle Cruise potentially, and you don't think it's interesting. That's a connection back to the designer of the ride.
I'm so tired. Is this podcast over yet or what? No, you are correct. It is substantial. It is iconoclastic, canon cinematography. This prop could be huge in one of the biggest scenes ever. Yes, it is big news. Do I care? No.
Well, I'm sure somebody cares.
Dude, just because I don't doesn't mean the entire world. Like it.
But we can't do this podcast anymore. I'm done.
Over the plane. It was the plane.
The plane was the last straw.
The plane was it. It was. Listen, I have been winging this podcast the entire time, so eventually you were going to clip me. So here it is. Seeing it all at this moment. So.
Oh gosh, this conversation has crashed and burned. I think we should head towards the African Veldt.
Let's do the African Veldt.
Oh gosh. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that you have lots on the animals too. I've got just kind of when it was added. Was added in 1964. So we've talked a lot of times about all the major renovations to the Jungle Cruise. 1964 was a big one for Disneyland. So it was added actually 2 years. Most of it was 1962, not 64 was when most of the stuff was added to the Jungle Cruise. So this was added 2 years after the rest of the additions because of the rock work delays from the team working on the 1964 New York World's Fair. So remember, like everybody, it's like all hands on deck to make all of these attractions for the 1964 World's Fair. So they pretty much did like very little at Disneyland. Like the Haunted Mansion sat empty for a very long time because they were all working. So that's why this scene was added late to the game.
Mm-hmm.
I also have a press release from when this was released. I don't know if we want to do that or do we want to talk about the scene in general?
Let's set the scene. How about let's set the scene with some concept art? Let me pull up Mark Davis. Let's do a little Mark Davis moment. It's okay.
Gosh, that book is so heavy.
I'm going to lay it down. That way I can. Let's get smarter, not work harder. So yeah, here we go. This is probably like the best iconoclastic look, feel.
So the way I have for your information, Kirk, the way I have this kind of organized in my brain is kind of like by animal group.
Okay, pick an animal group and I hope I have it. For concept art wise.
Let's talk about, do you have zebras?
I've got a zebra on the grounds and I got some zebras up here, but I don't have zebras. I have a zebra in a drawing being torn apart. Do you want that one?
Yeah, we'll do that one with the lions. Let's leave that one for later.
Let's do it.
So the zebras, there's a really fun construction story about how these zebras were made. Not those ones. Go back to the other zebras. That's a different zebra. That's like a zebra that's torn apart. We want the full zebras, the ones that have not been ripped to pieces.
Sure. Here, I'll give you an actual picture of the, this one's a little better.
Okay, so Joyce Carlson was working on them, and this is kind of a little story from her. So she said, I was working on a zebra for the Jungle Cruise. I never painted a zebra in my life, full scale, you know. I thought all the stripes were the same, but they're not. There's about 4 different species of zebras. So I picked up all these books from the library and I said to Mark Davis, which zebra do you want? He picked one, so I mixed the colors and painted the zebra. I was just finishing it up and putting the eyelashes down and putting the mane in, and in the tail, we put wire in the eyelashes because in the park, the birds would come and pull out the hair for their nests. So I had to put wire so they would stick on the zebra. We used horsehair with a needle to stick it into the skin. Walt came by and looked at the zebra and said, oh, that's a good looking animal. And I said, oh, thank you, Walt. Then Roy Disney, who was balding, came by later and said, Joyce, could you put a little hair on the top of my head like the zebra and the tail? And I said, sure, but it'll smart a little. So he walked away. And then later on, he came by and said, I changed my mind. If it smarts, I don't want it. I'll just stay the way I am. And she says he was fun and very sweet. Roy was very nice. So
yeah, I love it. And they do have little tufts of hair. Look at that little mohawks.
Sure yes, indeed. So little fun creation of the zebra story there. I've got one with Walt and the zebras. Look it on. I love that one with Walt and the lion's mouth.
Mm-hmm. There's also, I'm pretty sure that's Walt back here with zebra as well.
Yeah. Do you have any zebra facts?
Oh, do I? Where's my zebra pictures? Zebra. Okay, here we go. Let's get excited, kids. Because this actually will help you when you're in Animal Kingdom as well. Or at Animal Kingdom Lodge. So zebras, the Grevies and the mountain zebra, and there are the plain zebra. Now, technically, Joyce is a little bit off. There's a lot of subspecies within the plain zebras as well.
No, there's only 4. She said there was only 4.
That might be my favorite. That's yeah. That's like
what happened to you? Dude, pull together. We gotta talk about zebras.
No, it was great. Yes, okay, thank you. That was a great laugh. Thank you. That was no. It was like you came out of. It was like you came out of like the backstage and just poked your head in just to say that. Anyway, so you The most popular style of zebra that people like to photograph are plain style zebras. And the reason is because you'll notice that the tum-tums of the grevies and the mountains are white. They have white. But these plain zebras have stripes that go all the way around their stomachs. So that's kind of where they wanted to go. They wanted to have it all the way down, pretty much touching to the bottom. And if you notice, there are 1 million subspecies. There's the mainless, which is Roy, I guess, who would be the mainless. The mainless.
The mainless is Roy Disney.
It's Roy Disney. Then you do have the Grant zebra. And then you have the
We got this. We can do this.
Those are the Grant zebras. You do have Grant zebras on the actual Jungle Cruise, or not Jungle Cruise, on the on Kilimanjaro Safari. You have Grant zebras. You also do end up getting some mountain zebra or Grevy zebra over at Animal Kingdom Lodge. So all different types. It just depends on where you're looking. Somebody just said it looked like he had an emo haircut. Yes. So yeah, that's what I have. Zebras.
Yeah.
Also, fun fact, if you shave a zebra, they are all brown underneath, like grayish brown. So they're
it's just their hair that's colored?
Yeah, so this is, I learned this when I was at Busch Gardens. If you were to shave a zebra, which I don't recommend, they're very ornery when they're, they don't have any fur. It's uncomfortable. But no, the zebras, they are all like a grayish brown when you actually shave them. And their hair color is actually brown. It is not black. And the best way to describe this is to think of coffee. When you get a cup of coffee, it looks black, but however, when you spill it on a napkin, it's actually brown. So it's just the concentration of all of that brown color together in one significant spot. That density of it makes it look the perception of black. So zebras are actually brown and white, but there's such a high concentration of brown hairs, they look black and white.
That's great. I had no idea. I just thought that was just their skin color was black and white.
Well, a lot of people say that too, and they'll do the old is you could tell if it's black with white stripes or white with black stripes because of their noses and their muzzle, but I don't feel like there's truth to that anymore. I feel like my whole life it's a lie, actually. It's a one big
like the Casablanca plane. It's Oh gosh. Okay. Do you have anything else on zebra? Moving on.
No, luckily.
I'm just going to run down before we move on to the rest of the animals, just to give us a little context of all the animals that are in the scene, and then we can maybe go through a few of them. I don't have stuff on every single one of these, but just to give us a little more broad context, since we just jumped right into zebras. Other things that are in the scene is they used to have baboons. We talked about that last week. Up on the entrance at the termite mounds, but now they're in the gorilla camp. So we won't revisit that. We did talk about the baboons last week. And then they have gazelles. They have an oxpecker somewhere. I haven't seen it. Mallard ducks apparently are official animals now because they've been in Disneyland's version so much. They've got termites, vultures, giraffes, African lions, and of course our friend the zebra. And then gnus, which are wildebeest, same animal, different name. All right, let's talk about gnus/wildebeest.
Tell me the daily news.
Well, we'll get there. So while gnus are shown to be animals in the African Veldt, in real life, the wildebeest are not native to North Africa and are rather animals belonging to South or East Africa. So it's actually, they shouldn't quite be there, but they're there. And if we're going to talk about the daily news, let's get into that a little bit. What is the daily news? Why we've been talking about this throughout this whole series, but we've just kind of danced around it. We haven't really mentioned much about it. So the Daily News is a colonial newspaper that's just was distributed in Adventureland, mystical hybrid of locations across the world connected by the rivers of adventure. The Daily News was active in the 1930s and had services including food reviews, community postings, advertisements for local colonial businesses, entertainment spotlight, a sports desk, Dateline Adventureland, which had more intensive stories and interviews. The newspaper took its name from the news resident in Adventureland's African Veldt, and featured illustrations of the animals under its title. Once a year, they also held a Daily News annual children's coloring contest, which you might remember from when we did the queue of the Florida version of the attraction. There's actually a little plaque about them winning the children's coloring contest. The Jungle Navigation Company came in second place in the Daily News annual children's coloring contest. There's a whole bunch of people that contribute to the staff. I just kind of highlighted a few of them because I'm not going to read all of these, but there's, I like Colin Netcrash is one of the reporters. He ran the Daily News sports desk. Skip Doc Monkey was a jokester and infamously disastrous skipper for the Jungle Navigation Company, who's also a journalist for the Daily News. And then they have, then they have even Walt Disney reporting. The newspaper included Merry Menagerie comics made by Walt Disney, which were actually real comics. So they put them in there. It's a newspaper for Adventureland. And they use it for telling backstory of characters and whatnot. Like they used it when they made Alberta Falls a character. When they're trying to communicate all these storyline changes, they use the Adventureland news, the Daily News for that.
Here's another fun fact. What would you call a wildebeest who delivers the Daily News?
I don't know what.
A ganoozy. Yeah, it's a silent G, but yeah, newsy.
Yeah, it's really more of a spelling joke.
It really is. That's why you gotta.
G-N-U-S.
Yeah. It's a visual one. That's why
it's a tough
horribly
one.
mispronounced it. So our auditory fellows and ladies, take that in. It was a good one. Leave me alone, Victoria.
Yeah, so that's pretty much all I've got on wildebeest.
All right, wildebeest. Let's talk about them. I got wildebeest stuff.
Right.
So wildebeests. I have found out that there's multiple types of wildebeests. There's two. There is the blue and there is the black wildebeest. So this is a black wildebeest. They look very bull-like almost in structure, especially with the way that their horns kind of go. And they also have almost like a water buffalo style head as well. But these would be blue. So you're my boy, Blue. When you go past the wildebeest, you can actively say that because they are blue wildebeests.
That's fine.
There you go. And that one is from Tanzania. So you can see, as Kate had mentioned earlier, where are wildebeest located? Yeah, it's in this blue region. So
they're called blue, and it's in the blue region. It's awfully convenient.
All right. That's all I got on wildebeests.
Okay. Moving on.
Yep. What animal do we want to hit next?
We should not hit animals.
First of all, call me a gorilla and call this whole podcast an alligator because I'm bonking heads. Let's do it.
Those are crocodiles, aren't they? They're crocodiles.
Was it? It was a crocodile.
Let's talk about giraffes a little bit.
Giraffes. I like it.
If you remember, the giraffes used to be just heads above tall grasses, and just kind of moving their heads back and forth, which I have a video of, and I'll pull it up while Kirk talks about giraffes. But now they're full characters and animated, and they actually move their heads and they chew. So this is a great, I actually found this one from the archives. It's such a great photo of just the giraffe heads.
Hey, can you leave that one up?
Yeah.
Let's talk about giraffe, people. Most times when you're in Florida, you're actually going to see two different styles of giraffe. So in the Jungle Cruise, there's four major types of giraffe. Here, let me zoom out just a touch. That's my zoom function. Northern giraffe, reticulated giraffe, Maasai giraffe, and southern giraffe. Southern giraffe kind of look like they're blurred almost. It's like blurred vision, like their spots are a little bit blurry. Maasai giraffe, which you can see at when you're on Kilimanjaro Safari, it kind of looks like a maple leaf pattern. Sometimes you'll hear your drivers say it kind of looks like the shape of Africa for some of them, but I don't know. I think they look more like maple leaves for the Maasai. And then there is the reticulated giraffe. This is the style that we're actually looking at here. So on the Jungle Cruise, they are reticulated.
So reticulated.
And it's just like the pattern style, the reticulated ones, because there's reticulated pythons. I know there's one there's a reticulated python actually in the queue for Busch Gardens Cobra Curse. It's actually really neat. I have a reticulated
Wait a minute.
python right
Okay, I have this one. Yeah. This one's the one that's chewing. This is like a close-up.
Yeah, so that's like the only difference there is they just put a lot more space in between the white spots. Yeah. I mean, you could claim that that's more of a northern giraffe kind of vibe, maybe. But when you look at the ones that are there now, they're all reticulated because it's a lot closer.
Well, this one is there now.
Where's the one? Hang on, I was on Dave Land.
So,
like these ones would be reticulated to me, and this was from 2008.
Yeah, this is a little older picture, but
yeah, I think they just visually, because it's so up close, it's those white lines. It's not batching. I don't think it's a northern one, but maybe. Because like these ones are too sharp. Right. I just think that the Imagineers made the lines a little bit more in cut so that visually you could see it from afar.
Yeah.
You know.
All right, let me see if I can pull up a little video from 1956 so I can show you guys what these.
Yeah, I mean, these are definitely reticulated. The necks are wrong, though.
Yeah.
This neck is wrong.
There's just a lot of space between there, and that's just the artists, the way that they painted them. And you also have to remember that they repaint these, like they do attractions, they repaint them every so often. And sometimes when they repaint things, they're not 100% accurate, like to what it used to be when they repaint it. That happened in Snow White Scary Adventure, so much so that somebody accidentally they changed it to Witch's Cottage instead of Dwarf's Cottage. They actually changed the wrong word back in the day, which is a little crazy. All right, I've got a little bit of this giraffe. Let's see, I think I can even give you some sound. This is where we get that joke. Give me 1 second. I'm going to make it bigger for you.
And now, if you keep watching that far bank, you can say that you had a nodding acquaintance with a giraffe. The giraffe, however, won't be able to say a thing, for this is one animal that has no vocal cords. Now, behind that pampas grass on your right.
Oh, that goes into the... So that was from 1956.
Fun fact about giraffes, too, these little tiny nodules on their heads that protrude from their skull, they're not horns. They're actually called ossicombs, and both males and females have ossicombs. However, their family group related cousin, the okapi, only the males have ossicombs where the females do not. The more you needed to know about random headwear of animals.
I don't know if I knew that they didn't have vocal cords. Just learned something from that 1956 documentary of the Jungle Cruise. I know they had tongues that are with they have purple tongues, but the ones that are, what are they called? Prehensile tongues that they use to grab the leaves with.
They eat like almost all day, right? They eat like up to 20 hours per day. And the reason why their tongues are black is because it's like a natural skin protectant. So it's, it literally is for the sun coverage. Otherwise they would get like sunburned tongues. They also put cages on all the trees because the giraffe would just eat all the bark. So like I saw a giraffe with like its mouth like almost like in the little sections of the fence trying to like get into the bark the other day.
Oh, that's great.
They barely sleep too. They sleep like less than an hour. And you only see giraffe on the grounds when they're extremely comfortable, and it almost never happens in the wild. It's almost only happens in captivity. So if you see a giraffe like sitting down, which does happen in the safari and whatnot occasionally, you are extremely lucky, because that's a very, very rare thing to see and almost never happens in the wild.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I know we already kind of mentioned the baboons last week. I do have a joke from the baboons that I found, though. Here's what the concept art, you're showing some of them. But this was the concept art that they were standing on those termite mounds. Now, remember, they did get these in Disneyland. They used to be in African Veldt, but then they moved to before the gorillas. But they never got these in Disney World because of essentially phase 2 budget cuts, because of having to add Pirates of the Caribbean took their budget away. So they didn't get all of the same features as Disneyland or the ones that they had planned because of that. So there is a joke that they told for it, an old joke for the baboons at the beginning of the Veldt. And they said, and there is Pat and Debbie Baboon. So Debbie, I looked it up. I was like, what is this referring to? This is obviously a cultural reference. And it's Debbie Boone, who sang "You Light Up My Life." So that's, sorry, my bad singing, but it's "You Light Up My Life" by Debbie Boone. That was a reference to that. So they're just playing.
Not to be confused with her other greatest hits, "Let Me Eat Those Ticks Off Your Back." Speaking of which, do you guys have do you have warthogs? I'm just looking at this concept art. Do you have warthogs at all? Or did they fall rest to the
No, they aren't
concept
there.
art?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. Not that I know of.
Yeah, I didn't see any in any of my research, but I saw that concept art and I was like, oh, I wonder if they're there.
And it's really interesting. Like, I never really thought about the termites being like a creature
An
that's
animal?
there.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. It's like, we don't even like really think of them as like termite mounds, but they are.
Mm-hmm.
And if we talk about the rock work just for a quick second, there was originally no like cave for the lions when, like, we'll talk about the lions in a second, but they just kind of sat out in the open for a long time. They eventually did frame them, and then to hide the lost safari, they put some rocks behind them in Disney World first. So the cave actually the framed one, when the Lost Safari was added, that was added in. But the cave was in the Walt Disney World version first, and then added to Disneyland in 1976. But the rock work hiding the Trap Safari was there in 1962 to 64. So the cave was added a little bit later than everything else, almost by a decade. And the rock work was done by Fred Yorger, our good old friend Fred, who did pretty much all the rock work everywhere. So
the rock fell on his head in the Haunted Mansion.
Yeah.
Speaking of rock work, I did pass our vacant gorilla crocodile rock.
You see it?
Yes. And I hate it. I hate it. Now that you've told me, I hate it.
I'm sorry.
Because I have an emptiness in my soul that will never be filled.
For your punching gorilla who's not there.
He's not hitting anything.
I know.
He's not even reaching banana. He's not doing anything.
I know. Once you see it, you can't unsee it.
You can't unsee it. It's true.
Sad.
It's true. It's very true.
Well, since we already we're talking about the lions a little bit, shall we go to lions? Should we do it?
I'd be lying if I didn't say that I had a lot of pride for this next section.
So what you're showing there is kind of like the original scene without the cave that we were talking about. This is just them hanging out in the elements for a very long time. Now, if we back up just a little bit, we remember way back when we started this series, we talked about the inspiration for this attraction, which was the African lion from True Life Adventure, right? This is a documentary that they based a lot of the Jungle Cruise on. So the original concept art for the lions actually had them doing a lot more activities, which is really typical of Mark Davis. He would do all kinds of exploratory art when he's trying to come up with new ideas. So we had them like prowling some animals, looking for their next meal.
Yeah, they're hungry.
And we had them also doing all kinds of lion things. Let me see if I can find them real quick.
How come, honestly, like this was the worst? They literally just threw them in the woods. You know what I mean?
The staging is terrible.
It's the worst.
It's really bad, which is probably why they like redid some of it. But yeah, for the long time, they were just like chilling in the woods over that sleeping zebra. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But I'm just trying to find that more concept art with the lions. So they had them doing all kinds of things, including fighting over the carcass. So let's talk about a little bit about the zebra carcass. Because this was an actual thing. This one, let me make sure I can find it. So the lioness is fighting over a carcass. There was a lion and a lioness with a leg and a tail. And the lioness is fighting over a carcass. And this was installed in June of 1964. So it looks a little bit different. What was actually installed, I think you have a picture of it on that page. What actually was installed is a little bit different than this concept art. Because Mark Davis said this was the early version. Later, we got into the thing with the lions up this kind of big rock. And then the other side, we hit the trap safari till you rounded the corner. So he's saying like, this was kind of like our early lions. It was removed in 1976 because the damage had been done out in the elements. They've been out in the elements but it's also because of the gruesome nature of the scene. It's really kind of horrifying.
There's some bits in there.
So whether it was just, hey, they were getting a little bit old out in the sun. I mean, look at this one. Like this to me is it's a thing. This is the lionesses fighting over this like leg.
That's real life. That's what happens.
Yeah. But it was a lot. So yeah. So they did remove them. Can you show that concept art for this one more time?
Yep.
This is what they actually looked like. And then Kirk has this kind of concept art for them. So one is a tail and one is a leg. Yeah, so they don't exist anymore in the attraction because they were a little bit gruesome. And then also for the lions, there's a total of 6 lions that have been removed since opening day. One that growled when the African Veldt was added. 2 lionesses from the Veldt that were fighting over the bloody strand of zebra meat, which we already showed you. A lion and a lioness that each had a zebra leg in their mouth and a dead. And then there was also one that was deceased who was hanging over spit over a fire in the native village, which we'll get into later. So that was another lion that's around. He was just lying around. And they also had in this scene, they had 2, or I don't know if there's 2. They removed from the Veldt some African wild dogs that were barking at the Pride. So that there used to be wild dogs in the scene as well. And I do have a picture of that somewhere. I'll pull that up in a second. But I love this when they were doing all these renovations. There's this really great quote by Alice Davis. It's one of my favorites. And she said, one of my favorite stories, because she said they had an open house at Imagineering. And just for this one day, they had a lot of Mark's sketches for the jungle ride. And Harper Goff, the original designer of the Jungle Cruise, came, and he came over to me and he said, I was very upset when I heard that Mark had changed the river ride. Now that I've seen it, why the heck couldn't I do something like that? Because he did a darn good job. He had a little colorful language there, but I'm going to make it a little PG for you. So I think it's really interesting that how Harper Goff changed his perspective. He was really upset that somebody was like replacing his work essentially. But after he went and saw what Mark Davis did, he had a greater appreciation for it, which I really love.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the concept of plussing an action in the correct way. Yeah. Because I think a lot of us have problems with change. Most of us have problems with change, and it takes us an inarguable amount of time to move when things are forced upon you, right? Yeah. So I'm sure that happens quite a bit with attractions from a guest perspective, but it's interesting to hear it from a creator's perspective. And then I also like hearing it from somebody who has consistently worked on a project multiple times. So like Mark Davis also worked on the Tokyo Disneyland version of it. So like hearing how things went for that project, or Tony Baxter talking about how many times he got to redo and remake Big Thunder was like his pride and joy to keep changing and evolving and making it the best version that it's ever had, with Paris being the last installment of it.
Yeah, he's like one-upping himself. He's
Right,
like,
which I think is really cool. That's, I mean, because you don't get it right the first time. You like there's an old concept in business that if you're happy with the final product, it means you launched too late.
Yeah, I think I've heard that before.
Yeah,
That's a good perspective. I do have a couple other things about the lions. I've got
please.
This is a little model that they did of one of them, and I think I have more than one. This one might be one of the. This doesn't look like a lion. It's like one of
It's
the.
a hyena.
Hyena, yeah.
Hyena.
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 We're such nerds. Okay. We did show this one way back when we did the animals, but I think this is one of my favorite pictures of like them lifting the lion into place. Which you can see, we pointed this out before, you can see the Jungle Cruise boat with like people in it behind them. Just so weird.
Like, what are you doing?
Like, why are they staging this with like people watching them?
Yeah, it's crazy.
And I love this one. This isn't specifically the lions, but we talked about some of these animals already, and I forgot. So this is a staging of all of the animals. They put up these little wood models of them. So they had like the actual model that was the little miniature one, and then they have this one. These are just like fake animals that they just stuck in place with plywood to see where they wanted to put them, which I think is really fascinating from a creative perspective. And this is the actual model. It's really kind of tough to see. You can kind of see the trap safari here at the little pole. That kind of gives you an idea of where you're at. But I looked at the posters that are hanging up in the back of this. This is in the model shop at WED. And I was looking at these posters that are on the back wall. And I was like, that's so cool that those posters are back there. They have Tom Sawyer Island. They have the Space Station X-1. And I was just like, I think they have the Matterhorn, a little corner of the Matterhorn. I was like, look, they have their little attraction posters in the model shop.
I love that. That's so cool.
I know. It's so fun.
Oh, I found, this is like retro footage, but it shows how this lion scene kind of looked before they added that rock outcropping. And we get, hang on. Oh no, why is it super bright? Bring the brightness down. There we go.
Yeah, I've got once they've got the rocks.
Brightness. What are we doing? There we go. Better. Okay, so you can see the lions. Here, let me zoom out. You can see how the lions are over the zebra in this scene, and then there are the two lionesses. It cuts off right here, but they're fighting over that gruesome bone.
Yeah.
And you'll notice the hyenas are really small in this scene, or these are these have to be the African wild dogs.
Those are the wild dogs.
Those are the wild dogs.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. Because the hyenas, they got moved to the trap safari scene.
Yep.
So, so they built this giant cave, this rock outcropping, and the staging is a little bit different in Disneyland. But if you look at that picture that you just had, you saw the we didn't talk about the vultures yet, but the vultures were in there.
Yeah.
You see, but they're out just like on a tree. But instead, now they kind of positioned them on top of these rocks, waiting to have a snack when all is said and done. I don't really have a lot on the vultures, except that, like, look, they were there, and Disney loves their vultures, and they included them in the scene. It's like
I do. I know. I have like the weirdest animal fun facts.
Let me tell you about vultures.
Vultures are carrion birds, so it means that they only eat things that are already dead. So like something's already killed it and they've eaten it. The other thing that's interesting about vultures, and I think Bear Grylls did this once, where if a vulture's eating it, it means that the meat isn't like bacteria infested, so they don't get sick. So it means it's relatively fresh. I know this is all gross, But it made me then look at how many different types of vultures are there. Let's look at all the African
Went down
vultures
the vulture
that are
rabbit
everywhere.
hole.
Oh, I went down a vulture rabbit hole, and I think I have landed on the iconoclastic lappet-faced vulture, which is found pretty much in central, eastern, and southern Africa. And I'm pretty sure it's this bad boy. Now, they add white all the way around his neck, which is not exactly continuity correct, but
that's how all of the Disney vultures are everywhere, right?
They all are. And if you look at African vultures, there is only one other one that has a lot of white on its chest. Like most of them are very different, unique colored ones. But there's another one that's called the white-headed one a little bit, but I thought there was a hooded one. This one, the hooded vulture, which it could be a hooded vulture, but there's not enough white and it's not roughed enough. It's just like a little patch. So I'm going to say that it is
like this. It's like this is Disney's iconic
Right,
vulture.
That's Disney's vulture. I'm pretty sure that is the lappet-faced vulture, which is right here.
He's strutting.
Yeah.
Look at him go.
Well, I mean, how else are you going to show off those talons,
We actually, where we live, we have a ton of turkey vultures. They're very, very common. And you can tell you can tell them while they're flying because they have white on their wings. You can see it here too. That there's this variety also has it that you're showing. So you can see that the kind of like their wings are almost like half white and half some other like the darker color. So my kids can always see above our house if they're turkey vultures. My mom calls them TVs.
There you go. The TVs are out.
The TVs are flying.
Mm-hmm. The TVs.
There's some good vulture facts.
There you go.
Done. Oh, I saw more here. I see more of the wild dogs here in this one with Walt. You see him right in front of his
right by his foot.
Mm-hmm.
They're kicking him.
They're not there. He's kicking him.
It's not kicking him.
Nah. So I also love this. This has got to be in the next scene. I just like this picture of Walt. I think we've showed this one before. He's just chilling with his hyena.
Yeah.
Yeah, those vultures look very pristine, like cleaned up, not as ragged as the one that you showed.
Yeah, in real life, vultures are very different.
Mm-hmm. Shocker. The animals aren't exactly like real life on the Jungle Cruise. Yeah. I have one here that has the vultures that has the little striped canopy in the picture, which is kind of interesting.
There you go.
Yeah, there's the canopy.
See the boat.
There's the vultures. And yeah, so let's see. We got off track. Do we get all the lion stuff? Did you want to talk more about lions? So we kind of transitioned to vultures. It's okay if you don't have anything.
Simple facts about lions. Lionesses do almost all of the hunting. They do it mainly at night. Lions, if you want to hear them roar on the Kilimanjaro safari, go very first thing in the morning because they will roar when they're feeding. Also, fun fact on Kilimanjaro safari, if you ever see lions eating, they actually de-blood all the meat because they don't want guests who would see lions feasting being covered in blood. That would scare kids a lot.
Oh my gosh.
So they actually de-blood all the meat, which is crazy. And a male lion's mane can weigh up to 40 pounds. But yeah, if you want to catch a roaring lion, go very first thing, so like usually 8:00 or 8:30, depending on when early. Safari doesn't open until 8. So anytime between 8 and 8:30, you have a really good shot at the lions being 1, active, and 2, potentially roaring. And I forget the name of the lion that is at Animal Kingdom, but he is actually the lion from the live action Animal Kingdom.
Yeah.
So they used him for that.
That's cool.
There you go.
I do have another little story from my favorite Alice Davis. Mark Davis had wanted to put fences around the outside when they were changing things for the Jungle Cruise. He wanted to have fences with holes in them and then have the lion on the other side looking at you. But they didn't buy that. They said they thought it would frighten children. I don't think it would frighten children. It would frighten adults more than children. Children would think it was fun.
Dude.
You could have like little holes in the fence you look through and there's like a lion like roaring at you.
I was going to show this. I cannot show this. Google lion eating, and that's enough. If you do that,
don't show that.
We cannot show this. This is wow. Yeah, I'm glad they de-blood the animals, because this would horrify kids.
Yeah, we don't want to show that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Do we have any more lion talk?
I don't know, but I found this really cute lions drinking picture. So let's just look at cute lions.
They're like kitty cats.
Yeah. There we go.
Okay. So I have just a general note about the Florida version. Something people might not know about the Florida version is it used to have a very open background to it until 1983, because that's when they added the Grand Floridian and you could see it from the background. So they added a whole bunch of, that's a great picture of that. You can see right through it, pretty almost to the water out there. But
it's so weird. So like there's a couple of things. This is a fun fact I learned for this exact picture. The Jungle Cruise is the lowest in terms of elevation attraction in the Magic Kingdom. Yeah. And they use this exterior because behind this, when we learned in Keys of the Kingdom, like this area is a lot of backstage parade floats. And that's originally what they kind of were using it for, was for like parade floats area and storage. And then Pirates is like over here, yes, a ways. But they didn't have a berm at Disneyland to help like obscure things. So yeah, I mean, you're looking straight out into just the open air. It's so crazy. And the lack of vegetation in comparison to what it looks like now, this is so stark and different than the African Veldt we have today. Like even just looking at, like, it's no longer, it's all rocks and pebbles.
That's what I was gonna say.
But it was all grass.
Grass.
Like it just was grass chilling.
Yeah, it's interesting that they changed it all to rocks, and it's different than Disneyland, because Disneyland is actually like sculpted rock, whereas yours are just like pebbles that they threw in there. They're like rocks. They're like just a bunch of rocks, which is so interesting. That's different.
Yeah.
I also should have showed this earlier, but I just have this really great photo of the building. This is not the cave. This is like the rock structure that blocked, this is in Disneyland, the rock structure that blocked the view of the Trap Safari so that you wouldn't see that scene coming. But this was like the precursor to the cave, essentially.
Yeah, like, and like here you can see that as well, because otherwise you would be able to totally see the pole.
Exactly.
All the way in the back, I'm just going to pick up another animal because I don't have any information on these guys, but super, super far in the distance. If you were with me at Busch Gardens, I pointed out these guys. They kind of look like little running s'mores. These are Thompson's gazelles. If you've never seen a Thompson gazelle, they're really cute. They do have them on at Animal Kingdom as well. And I believe Animal Kingdom Lodge has Thompson's gazelles.
Yeah, they do. All right. So I do have a little bit I have two things. I have backstory about what this scene is all about in terms of the concept of the Jungle Cruise. And then I also have those kind of press releases about all of this.
Let's do it.
So let's do the press release first, since we just talked about all these animals. So they had Jungle Law. This group of hungry jungle kings in Disneyland's new African Veldt region helps tell the age-old story, survival of the fittest, as jungle launches cruise by only a few feet away. Completely lifelike in appearance and movement, these Disney-created beasts are among 50 in Disneyland's newest attraction. So they added 50 characters in this. This will be like the 1964 press release. Howling jackals are among many wild beasts in Disneyland's new African Veldt region, as seen by adventurers aboard the Jungle River cruise. Lifelike in appearance and movement, these Disney-created animals are among 50 new beasts, which provide extra excitement for one of Disneyland's most popular attractions. So, and I want to just give like mention like, you already said this, that there's warthogs in there that we don't have in the concept art. And we have the wild dogs that were barking that we lost. And the hyenas were later moved to the trap safari scene when the rhino moved from the right side to left, which we'll get into next week when we talk about trap safari. And there was also deer in this scene in a lot of the concept art, which I showed you with the lion that was kind of like looking at the deer. We do have deer in Disneyland that's across the river from the scene. And you don't have it in Disney World. And they like to use the joke like, oh dear. Or, they just kind of make a small joke to acknowledge them. But
I like that. That's cool.
Yeah.
We don't have deer. We have antelope.
Mm-hmm. So
but
they're in their own little like section that doesn't exist in Disney World. It's like they're just like off. They're on the other side of the river.
Is that these
chilling.
ones?
No. Oh, maybe. They look different. It might be. They go by so fast. I've like barely seen them, and I didn't get a photo of them last time because they're literally like over your left shoulder. You have to like turn back and look at them. You almost don't see them at all.
Here are the hyenas before they got moved.
Hyenas.
I swear I had a picture of...
While you look for things, why don't I talk about the backstory a little bit, if that's okay?
Please do.
It's Mr. Vulture again. Okay, so the backstory for the African Veldt. Why is this in the Jungle Cruise? Well, around the summer of 1891, the African Veldt was documented by colonial explorer Dr. Albert Falls. Falls was on the 9th day of a 13-day expedition to map the mystical rivers of adventure, which allowed him to access the Veldt from the rivers of the Congo Basin. Falls went on a short animal watching adventure while in the African Veldt, and his time in the region lasted somewhere between 2 and 4 days. The adventure ended with Falls passing through the Hippo Pool primate refuge and onto the Zambezi River, which was later. In 1911, Falls established the Colonial Jungle Navigation Company, which would regularly pass by the Veldt. At some point following 1916, Jungle Navigation Company boatsman Frank Wolff would seemingly travel to the Veldt in an expedition to map a new route among the rivers of adventure, accessing the Veldt from the Congo and leaving for the Mekong River in Cambodia. The African Veldt was a region often traveled past by Falls Company, the Jungle Navigation Company, for their Jungle Cruise tours starting in 1931. Around 1936, the Jungle Navigation Company's activities on the rivers of adventure correlated with an invasive species of Northern American mallard ducks infesting the Veldt along the other regions of Adventureland. While scientists were perplexed by their migration and concerned with the potential harm they could do to the ecosystems they were put up with due to how cute they were. So they kind of they just work because ducks like to sit on the crocodiles in the Disneyland's Jungle Cruise. The ducks are everywhere. So they just kind of work them into the story. They're like, we don't know how they got here, but they're here and they're cute. So they're fine. So that's kind of the backstory for African Veldt. It's pretty straightforward. Yeah. So that's that.
Yeah. I saw that too. That was, I saw where I was reading the exact same article. I just pulled up my notes. I was like, you and I get anywho's, I think these are your quote unquote deer. This is the picture I was looking for.
Yeah. They look different now. I think.
Okay.
I think they've been restaged because that was 2010.
So of course, when you find deer, you have to go, well, how many types of antelope are there in Africa? And by the look of this, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So at least 20. So there's at least 20 different style ones. Thompson gazelles, I had mentioned earlier. These are those little s'more looking guys. They're super cute because they've got graham cracker chocolate and vanilla. That's why you call them s'mores. But the cute actual ones that you guys have these are Impala, and we actually get a joke and then the 65 Impalas are back there. So here is what a real Impala looks like with those curved horns. So they don't.
No, those aren't the deer. Those are something else. Yeah.
Okay. Chill. First of all, chill. All right. Take a breath. I'm not yelling at you. I don't care. I'm just telling you that this is what these are.
I'm just realizing I'm like, that couldn't possibly be the deer because it's just not, they don't look the same.
Well, if you look at this horn, this horn distinction is how I denoted that it was these ones versus the many multitudes, 20 plus type of antelope that can be found in Africa.
Yeah, I'm trying to find some good pictures of them. There's not many. Like they're kind of like in the background of the scene. They're very difficult to find. So, but they are around. And the deer that are in Disneyland now, I tried to look up like a video of it. I'm like, I don't even think I have one. So I'm going to do a little bit of homework and see if I can find some better pictures of deer for you guys.
Oh God, are you sure? Are you sure it's not these? Are you sure it's not these? Hang on.
I don't know because I've barely seen them. They're like, they go by them so quickly.
I don't know. There's a lot. Unless they got rid of the ones in the front and they just left the ones in the back.
It might be them.
There's so many and they're in the woods. Like if they got rid of these ones in the foreground and you only had that, and that, you would barely be able to tell.
But there's only like 3, horns. I feel like. I know.
That's what I'm saying. I'm trying to say they got rid of Heckle, Jekyll, and Freckle, and they kept Manny, Mo, and Jack. Do you know what I'm saying?
Freckle.
It's like I'm saying they got rid of the foreground ones and they kept the ones all the way in the back, which look very just deer-like, minus the one in the back who has horns, but the horn, it's an Impala horn.
I feel like they got rid of the one that has the horns and they just kept the other ones. I think that's what happened.
Maybe.
So
I'm curious. Now I'm forever perplexed and will need to find out more information.
Oh dear. That wraps up the African Veldt. So next week we'll for sure do the Lost Safari part of that, just because we didn't want to combine them all in one episode, especially because
it's too much. And now with the integration of the new characters, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 backstories you have to go through of people and what they're holding or wearing. And how does that reference?
I think it's its own episode. I think the Lost Safari is its own episode. I think
Trap Safari is its own thing. 100%. Yeah.
So that's what we'll do next week. For next week's episode is we'll
get ready
tackle
to
the
feel.
Lost Safari.
Yeah, I honestly get ready to feel how I feel every time in this podcast. Just trapped. I always feel trapped in the safari.
I thought you were going to say lost.
No. Is it trapped or lost? Are we trapped or lost?
It's a lot. The Trap Safari.
I believe it's trapped.
It's trapped is what I see on Mark Davis's art, but I've also heard it referred to as the Lost Safari. So we'll get into more of that next week. But yeah, Trap Safari.
A lot of changes.
Lots of changes. Yes.
But I think for the better. I like the storylines now. So yeah.
Alrighty. Well, I think that pretty much wraps this up for tonight. Do you have any final thoughts on the African Veldt or the plane?
I'm so happy we're done with the plane. This has been great. This honestly was
I'm going to bring it up every week now.
For those that are listening, I am clearly bored. Just kidding. No, it was very thought-provoking. I genuinely enjoyed learning about it, and I look forward to never talking about it again.
I'm going to bring it up. It's going to be a thing.
It's totally cool.
Oh, gosh. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us for Distory this evening. We really appreciate having you along for this journey. I think 13 episodes into this Jungle Cruise series, which is bananas in a good way. So we're really enjoying going through this in nitty gritty detail with y'all. And next week we'll be back for the Lost Safari. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The amount of episodes we've had is bananas, but I found it appealing and I've enjoyed them a bunch. But right now we're going to end the episode because we both have to split.
All right, Skipper Kirk, have a wonderful weekend, everybody. And we will see you next time for Distory with Kate and Kirk.
I'm going to make like a tree and leave. See you guys.
Bye, everyone.